Hello and welcome to this lesson on the tune Captain Pugwash. This is also known as the trumpet hornpipe, and that's what it was originally called before it was used for the TV series that I used to watch when I was a kid. The story goes that the guy that recorded it in the 50s got a fee of the equivalent of £1.50, and so he didn't get any royalties. If he'd have waived that fee and gone for royalties, he'd probably would have been a millionaire, the amount of times that Captain Pugwash has been screened over the years. But it's one of those things. He learns it from Sir Jimmy Shand, a very famous accordionist here in the United Kingdom, Scottish accordionist. He used to play it as the trumpet hornpipe, of course, and that's where we all know it from. It's a really good tune. I've done various versions of it. It's actually in the key of G major, and I started off doing a version in G major but on a CG, this CG concertina, but the problem was I couldn't manage to get any chords going with it, so I've done this version in C major. So we're playing in C major on this CG concertina. If you want to play it in G major, you need a GD concertina. On this instrument, this row is C and this row is G, and the front row is the accidental row. On a GD concertina, this row is G, this row is D. So if you play the same buttons, more or less, depending on what your accidental row is configured to, on a GD, you'd have it in its native key of G major, but we're in C major, so bear that in mind when you play it. So the plan is to play most of the tune on the right hand side, and on the left hand side we're going to do our pa kind of bass line for most of the time. On a few bars, of course, you're going to be doing some special things, and that's what that bass clef is for, and I'll explain that as we go. If this is your first lesson with me, make sure you read the document, the CG, Anglo Concertina and the bass clef, so that you understand how and why we use that clef. And make sure you print out the instructional notes that go with this tune, and obviously the sheet music. And also I would suggest sellotaping the 3 sheets together so that it doesn't keep dropping off your music stand. Now there are a fair amount of notes at the beginning of the tune on the push, so pull your bellows out a fair way before you start, so that you've got plenty of air in the bellows for all those push notes. So the very first bar is what we call a pickup bar, and it's only one note in that bar. 4/4 is our time signature, so we're counting in 4s. You'll notice there are no sharps or flats to the right hand side of the treble clef or the bass clef at the beginning of the first stave. So we know we're in C major, no sharps and flats unless they happen to be accidentals, and we do actually have 1 or 2 of those. We'll deal with those as we come to them. So your first bar, you're going to count 1, 2, 3 and play that note there, which is G on the left hand side. We know it's left hand side because I put L.H. above it. So there's no chord there, and that's your little pickup note to start, and you'll go 1, 2, 3. And you're into the very famous part of the tune. Now, because I've managed to get the tune mostly on the right hand side, it means to say this, as I say, the famous part of the tune, we can get by repeating the note. I think it's fair to say that some players they use 2 fingers, sometimes even 3. I'm suggesting if you're a beginner, start off by using just 1 finger, like that. So the first 3 notes in that first main bar are triplets. Now a triplet, as the name would suggest, is 3 notes played in the time of 2. So you've got 3 quavers written there, and you count that 1 enna, 1 enna, 1 enna. And that would take up the same amount of room as 1 end, 1 end, see? So what you do is quite a weird thing. You divide your first bit of the bar into 3. Obviously you can't sort of count that particularly. You can't think of a beat divided into 3. It gives you this kind of bouncy, jaunty kind of feel. And then having played those 3 notes as a triplet, play the same note again as a crotchet, and you do that, and then at the end of the bar you play a different note, which is the note G, and it's the button number 8, On this particular concertina, it's kind of the middle button in that C row. So far we've been on the C row all the while. We start on the left hand side and then go to the right hand side. And on my notes I've said count it 1 and a 2, 3 and a 4 and. Like that, okay? Now the left hand is the classic C chord. The way we get a C chord, well, you can find that in the chart in your folder full of chord diagrams. Just to remind you, it's a C note, button 1, C row, little finger, and then you then play buttons 3 and 4 on that C row, fingers 2 and 1. So that's a C, an octave on the first one, and an E above that. So C note, and then C and E together. So your is that note, and your pa is that one. Pa is just the way we vocalise the classic bass line on a squeeze box. Like that. So that gives us the way that the pa fits with the right hand is like this. You've got the goes with the first note of the triplet. When you play that crotchet C, that's where your pa comes. And then again there, on the last pair of quavers, you do the pa on the first note of those 2 quavers. Okay, I spent a long time on that because that's a very important part of the tune, and it does happen quite a lot in the tune.